Hello everyone, Lindsay here with VisMe and welcome to another VisMe webinar. Today we're going to be talking all about creating memorable pitch decks, and we're so excited to bring this topic to you all, and we really appreciate you all joining. I am tuning in from San Clemente, California. We also have Nathan Beckard. He's joining right now from Palm Springs, California, and we've got Payman on the call. Payman Tai'i, he's joining from Rockville, Maryland. Right near the Washington, D.C. metro area. Before we get started, we want to make sure that you guys can see us and you can hear us. Everything's looking great. If you can you just type yes in the chat window so we know that we're not having any issues there. Looks like we're getting lots of yeses, so that's great. We'll go ahead and proceed. So we always love to hear where in the world you're joining from. We get people from all over the world. So why don't you, if you care to share, go in the chat window and type where you're joining from. We've got Miami, Florida, Baton Rouge, Surrey, UK. Oh, wow, they're coming in so fast. The Netherlands, Hungary, London, Buenos Aires, wow. Philadelphia, Egypt, truly all over the world. We'd love to see that. It's really cool. Thank you all for joining no matter the time zone. And I hope you get something of value for you today. All right, so today, like I said, we're going to be going through how to create memorable pitch decks. Nathan, he is the CEO of FounderSuite, and if you are not familiar with FounderSuite, FounderSuite is the leading platform for raising capital used by thousands of startups, VCs, accelerators, investment bankers all around the world to help them raise. They've raised over $2.5 billion in capital. So he is really an awesome resource for learning how to create memorable pitch decks. And then Payman is going to be showing you guys our brand new pitch deck theme within VisMe. So if you're not familiar with VisMe, VisMe is an all-in-one content creation platform that allows you to create captivating, interactive presentations and pitch decks without needing any particular design background. We have over 8 million users now from over 100 different countries, all over the world, from the individual users and educators to nonprofit organizations and Fortune 500 companies. Folks such as Capital One, IBM, Netflix, Workday are all using VisMe to create awesome content. So yeah, we have this new startup pitch deck theme that is really meant to help you guys craft pitch decks, whether that's for an investment or whether that's for a new project internally. Whatever you need to create that pitch deck for, this formula will work for you. And so we hope you guys enjoy that presentation. So wanted to remind you, again, this is a live event. So if you come across any connectivity issues or audio issues, anything like that, first step would be to refresh your browser. That tends to take care of most of the issues that we see. Another thing you could do is leave the webinar and come back in. But if you do hear some ums and ohs and any hiccups, we like to do these live to interact with you guys. And so we feel like that's important. So hopefully we don't have any issues today, but yeah, that's what we would do as a first step. I also would ask you guys to throw any of your main questions into the questions tab. That chat tab tends to get a little cluttered with casual conversation, as you can see so far. Lots of interaction going on in there. That questions tab will be the best place to make sure that you get all of your questions answered. I will be hanging out both in the chat tab and the questions tab to answer any questions that you guys have. And then we'll also answer a few live questions at the end of the webinar. So definitely use that if you have anything come up throughout the webinar. All right, so I think with that, one last thing, we are recording this webinar session, and you guys will receive the link to the recorded session at the end of the session. We'll email that to you so you can review it or pass it to whoever you'd like to do, whatever you'd like to do with that. Okay, so with that, I think we're ready to go ahead and pass it to Nathan. Nathan, are you ready to go?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
All right. Share my screen. And all right, let's do this. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Oh, there we go. All right, cool. Well, thanks so much for having me. I won't belabor this. Lindsay already gave a nice intro, but my name is Nathan. I run FounderSuite. We've been around about 5 years. It's a software platform for raising capital. So anyone in this audience raising capital or planning to raise capital in 2021, give us a look. We've got a bunch of really good tools, database, CRM, a pitch deck hosting tool. So once you create your masterpiece pitch deck, you can put it up on our site and send it out to investors. We've got a couple thousand monthly active startups on here, and they've raised over $2.5 billion. Before this, my whole career is raising capital, and so I've created probably a few hundred pitch decks and seen, probably 5,000 pitch decks. So hopefully I can bring a little bit of value to you guys about creating your pitch deck. First of all, why does this matter? Why do you need a good pitch deck if you're a startup? I'll put this in the context of raising money, but really this applies to multiple things, whether you're doing business development deals, whether you're doing sales calls, but in particular, when you're raising money, you want to get multiple investors putting forth term sheets or putting forth offers to you. And to get that, you need to tell a really good story. Investors, like we say here, invest in stories, not businesses. And what you're doing with your pitch deck is you're telling the story of how you're going to change the world with your startup. You're telling the story of how you're going to make investors lots of money. So we have a couple different archetypes or storylines to help you frame your story about your business, your startup. The most common one you see out there is the problem solution, right? You found a deep pain point in the market, a lucrative, valuable pain point, and you've come up with a solution to that, right? Probably 80% of the pitch decks out there are, a slide about the problem and a slide about your solution. And it's very effective. It's kind of the time-tested way of presenting your pitch deck. But there are other archetypes as well. The traction story, in this archetype, you're leading with your metrics, right? And metrics typically involve your revenue, your daily active users, your customer base, and the growth rate of those metrics, right? So both your metrics and the growth rate of those metrics. Also, a lot of times this traction story will focus on unit economics, right? What does it cost you to acquire a customer, and how much revenue per customer can you generate from that? If you've got those things all that are really attractive, I often tell founders to lead with that. What your business is almost doesn't matter as much if your traction story is really, really strong. So a lot of times we'll put in the traction story right up front in the pitch deck, a slide or two about your growth and rate of growth, as well as unit economics, to really get people excited right off the bat. And this is possibly my favorite archetype. If you've got the numbers, leading with it, it's just really, really powerful. X for Y is another way to start this off. Now, in this scenario, X is a proven, established example of a company like Airbnb or Uber, and Y is a new market category. And so an example here is, we are the Airbnb for dog boarding, dog vacay, right? We're applying a proven model like Airbnb to a new market category like dog boarding, and that's our new startup, right? I'm seeing this one a lot in like the personal products subscription business here. You've had companies like Dollar Shave Club and Harry's that have had billion-dollar exits, and they started by selling subscription razor blades, right? And I'm seeing that applied to, like, we are the Dollar Shave Club for skincare, or Dollar Shave Club for personal nutrition or hair products, right? I mean, you're seeing that. So this can be pretty effective because it's really, really crystal clear. It's like a nice, clean archetype to start your pitch deck with. Scratch your itch. So sometimes this one applies a lot to sometimes more technical type of startups, like Dropbox had a a famous kind of founding story where Drew Houston, needed a way to share files better. So he created something to solve his own needs. GitHub and Heroku also had kind of similar stories where it was like engineers tinkering and creating something to solve their own problems. A little bit like with Founder Suite, I was working with startups, helping them raise capital for about 10 years directly, and we would get them on. I'd build them a target investor list. I'd help them shape up their pitch deck, and then I'd build them a tracking system to keep track of all the to keep track of all the investors they're going to talk to. And I'm like, I could make software out of this that would do a better job of this thing. And so I kind of scratched my own itch. That sounds weird, but I scratched my own itch when I built Founder Suite as a way to do something that I was really passionate about a little bit better. So that could be a good storyline. Just one last comment about this. If you're going to use this format, it's best if the itch that you're scratching is pretty universal, and it's even better if the investor you're going after has experienced it, right? Otherwise, if it's too niche, this isn't the best archetype. Crystal ball. So this archetype is where you are looking at showing how history has evolved in a certain space or market, and you're kind of forecasting where it goes next. As an example, I've seen this pitch where you sort of like show the history and evolution of computing from mainframe to client server to desktop into mobile devices and now into wearables, and you're kind of creating this timeline or continuum into the future, predicting where some technology or industry is going next. We also call this evolution next, or skating to where the puck will be. You're kind of triangulating how certain trends are coinciding, to present the future. Investors love this because investors are always trying to kind of predict the future, and so they love hearing these pitches. So this archetype can actually, I would say, get you more pitch meetings because investors want to learn about the future and what's coming next and how smart entrepreneurs like you guys are thinking about the future. It can sometimes be harder to actually close the deal because investors might be using you to kind of learn about an industry. But this type of archetype is really attractive to investors and can get you pitch meetings. And it's kind of a fun one too, right? You're predicting the future basically and how your company is going to play a major role in it. Wouldn't it be cool? So this archetype, if you're doing a startup that isn't really solving a huge problem or painful problem, but it's something that's still really cool, this is a good archetype for that. Examples I include are like DoorDash. Wouldn't it be cool if one touch on your phone and you get your favorite restaurant delivered to you? Or even Uber kind of fits this too. Wouldn't it be cool if you simply push a button on an app and a personal driver shows up at your door? So this is often a pretty good one if you're doing like a B2C consumer focused app, or this could also be good for like dating apps, right? I mean, dating apps, I guess you could argue they're solving a problem in some ways, but wouldn't it be cool if we had a dating app? Actually, this is a real company I just interviewed on our podcast. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a dating app that didn't reveal the photo of the person until you got to know them? This is a real company called S'mores that just raised some money. But that's sort of their wouldn't be cool approach, right? The image slowly appears over time as you get to know someone. So this can be applied to a lot of consumer startups. So those are some of the, 6 or so of the most, common archetypes, good ways to frame it. Here's a few others. The new business model, I'm going to go over these a little quicker. New business model is where you're taking an existing industry and applying a new business to it. For example, Sunrun is, instead of just selling you solar panels for your roof, they're kind of leasing them as a subscription. So instead of just paying for them, you're like leasing them over time and sharing the economics, something like that. So you're taking, a different business model and applying it to a new industry. Consumerification of enterprise, that's a tongue twister right there. This is where you're going after the enterprise software market, but using software that feels like consumer software. So Asana is a good example, or even Slack is a good example. A lot of times, these companies will crack into the enterprise, crack into companies by having their actual users use it before it's even adopted by, the IT department, right? Slack is a good example. So making just really simple software. Dream team, this is where you've got a team of people, guys and gals, who have had success in some previous startup, and now they're coming at it for round two with a new company. And so the focus, the whole start of the presentation is about the team. You launch into it right with the team bios and background, what you've done before. This can also be sometimes applicable if you've assembled, like, if you're in life science or doing some space technology, and you've assembled this team of people who have, worked at SpaceX and stuff like that. Like you're really just focused on the credentials of the team as the focus of the pitch. Service at scale. So this is a bit of an unusual one. What you're doing here is you're taking an industry like graphic design or accounting, and you're doing it, what's usually been a kind of an industry that's a lot of like small individual consultants, and you're doing it at scale. So an example is 99 Designs. Instead of having, thousands of individual designers, each with their own web page, they've aggregated them into one page. Or bench accounting. Some of these, Wave is another one, where instead of having all these individual accountants that are running their own businesses, they've kind of provided a service at scale online. Breakthrough tech, this applies a lot to like really technical companies, like maybe you've come up with a new type of thin solar panel, or a new display for cell phones, or self-driving car technology, something like that, where really the pitch is about the technology you've created. And then the pivot, this is kind of a fun one. This is where you're telling the story of your company, how you've tried different things. Often those things have failed, and now you've evolved and learned from that into like the new model. A famous example is PayPal. PayPal started off as a crypto thing for handheld devices. Then it was a way to beam money between Palm Pilots. I bet 90% of you on this call don't even remember what a Palm Pilot is, but PayPal was a way to like transfer money between Palm Pilots. And they kept kind of hitting walls, pivoting, until they finally evolved into the PayPal that we know today. Twitter is another example. Twitter got its start as a podcasting company called Odeo, and they kind of ran into a wall with that, and ultimately kind of pivoted towards what they are today, right? Twitch is another example. So the interesting part there is like we tried X, it failed, but we've learned Y, and here's what we're doing next. So that's kind of a fun archetype. Okay, I want to keep going. One of the most just simple outlines out there is Sequoia's outline. This thing has been around for 20 years. If you're struggling to figure out like how to start your pitch deck, it's a really nice one, really simple. It kind of touches the problem solution archetype like we talked about. You can find it on their website. Now, one of my favorite ways to start building a pitch deck is to just create a teaser pitch deck. And this is like 4 or 5 slides. And, it's like 1 or 2 slides about problem solution, right? What are you doing and why are you doing it? Then the market, how big is the market, and why is now the time for this startup, for your startup to exist, right? A lot of startups fail because they're either too early, too late. So you're both painting the picture on slide number 2 of how big this market is and why now is the perfect time to get into it. Slide 3, who are you? Put up logos of your companies you've worked at, universities you've gone to, advisors on the team, and then traction. What do you have that you can point to, whether it's revenue's great, whether it's, active users, customer base, or partnership deals, whatever is going on, and what's the growth rate of that. So this is just a teaser deck. And we've got a couple thousand startups on Founder Suite. They're all raising capital. I tell the founders, when you're reaching out or getting connected to an investor for the first time, you don't want to send them a 45 megabyte, 25 slide deck. That's an overload. That's way too much. You want to send them like a 4 or 5 slide teaser deck, so they can, it's like I don't know what the good metaphor is, because I never really use these sites, but it's like just a little, like if you're starting to date, you don't provide your whole history. You just show a few bits about yourself so they get interested in learning more. And that's what we're really doing with this teaser deck, right? Just a little bit of what you're doing to tease them into wanting to learn more, setting up a call, a Zoom, pitch meeting, and going from there. Okay, just a few technical things, and then I'll be done here, and we can turn it over to payment. File type. I mean, typically when you're doing this, it's PowerPoint, Keynote, or PDF. Sometimes Prezi, or of course Visme is super excellent for this. I typically don't recommend having a lot of builds or like animation in this, because it can just cause problems, especially if you're sending this to an investor. Maybe their computer is older, or the animation or builds aren't really working as well on their computer. So just be careful if you're using like builds and layers and stuff. The length. So we kind of already talked about this. The teaser deck should be about 4 or 5 slides. The Sequoia deck is about 10 slides. If you want to do a deck with full appendix, that could be 10 slides plus 10 or 15 for the appendix. So anywhere between 5 to say 20 slides, but really no more than about 10 slides in the main body of the deck. The rest should be in the appendix. The tone. You should convey, you're telling a story, right? You're telling, again, like we talked about the very first slide, you're telling the story of how you're going to change the world and make investors lots of money. So it should be optimistic. It should be confident. You want to convey this in your slides. You don't want to be cocky or arrogant, but you should be very confident. I want to feel as an investor that you're going to break down walls and make this vision happen. More and more we're seeing people put up their pitch online instead of sending an attachment. We built, not to make this a pitch about Founder Suite, but we built an online pitch deck hosting platform for this. So you can, put your pitch deck up online. It generates a URL that you can then send out that URL to investors instead of attaching a big PDF file. And something that's a little bit controversial is, should you turn on view tracking? We have a view tracking toggle where if you want to track which investors looked at your deck, how much time they spent, how many visits, and when they visited, you can do that. Some investors don't like that. I think investors are pretty used to it by now, that they know you're going to be tracking their deck. But if you don't want to do that, you turn that off, and investors are just able to view your online deck without going through that. Assume, even if you have nice little confidentiality statements in your deck, assume your deck is going to be shared and sent around. So don't include anything that's truly proprietary. It could end up in your competitor's hands. Just assume your deck will be shared. And then, if you're out there raising money, sometimes it makes sense to put your materials, including your deck, behind a secure data room. This is usually for later stage startups raising, a $50 million Series C, not so much for seed round deals. A couple other things here. When you're going to be doing a live face-to-face pitch, when those return, or even a Zoom, get there early, get into the Zoom room early, get set up, make sure everything's working. When you actually go and start doing live pitches again, arrive at the venture capital firm's office 15 minutes early, 10 minutes early, not too early, 10 minutes early. The executive assistant will let you in, help you get set up with the projector, all that good stuff. And you just want to be ready when the investors walk in. Always be ready for a live demo of your product, especially if you're in tech, software. And be ready to be able to run a demo in case their internet's not working or for some reason you're not able to get connected. It's great to have an online demo on your computer in case the live demo doesn't work. When you're pitching, this applies to both face-to-face and over Zoom. You really want to make this as conversational as possible. You know, when I get founders in and they've got this script they've memorized and they're giving it like a robot, that's not a founder that is going to get funded, unfortunately. You really want to let it flow and make it very conversational. And a lot of times I'll even start off a pitch with an investor, you know, really just kind of making small talk with them. Like, so, you know, I'd love to make this meeting good for you. Do you want to jump into a pitch deck? Do you want to just get to a demo, or would you just like me to kind of tell you about my vision? Like actually asking questions to that investor, seeing what they prefer, and really trying to make it a very conversational approach versus I'm going to stand up here for 15 minutes and pitch you. You know, that's not ideal. Know your audience, right? If you're pitching an investor who was a former startup founder, that's good to know. If that investor maybe came from finance or was an investment banker, they might be more focused on the numbers. If they come from your industry, you know, you want to try and tune it as much as you can to your audience. So do some research before you get in there, know who you're talking to. And again, making it conversational. Ask them for feedback, ask them questions about the industry. If they come from your industry, use the pitch as a time to be probing them and asking questions. You know, so I know I said make it conversational, but you also have to memorize your deck. The worst thing you can do is open up a slide and read me the slide. I can read your slide faster than you can say it. You need to be able to kind of talk me through your slides without having to read the slides. You should, you know it cold, so you don't need to look at your slides. So have it memorized, but then turn it into a nice conversational flow. Keep in mind, this is a performance, right? You've got maybe an hour with an investor, more like 30 minutes, but they're judging you in the first 30 seconds of this. So you want to be attention getting, you want to be memorable. They're seeing 30 other pitches that week. You want to stand out as like, you know what, we want to follow up with that guy or that gal. It was really intriguing what they were doing. And I really got a good vibe about the founder. I really got the charisma and confidence of that founder. And then, you know, before you go talk to real investors and give your pitch, make sure you've given your pitch to your friends, to your enemies, not to your enemy, to your attorney, to accountants, anyone who will listen, to other founders. Great way to get practices to pitch in front of other founders who will give you feedback. So that when you're ready, you know, when you go in front of an investor, you're really polished and feel confident about it. And then last but not least, don't forget the ask. You know, ask them, hey, I really enjoyed presenting my vision of the future and how we're going to change the world. You know, is this type of deal interesting to you? What's your typical check size and what are next steps? You know, you want to ask kind of what the next steps are. So a few presentation hacks. Almost done here. So just a few ways to get started. When I'm making a pitch deck, a lot of times I'll get a stack of 10 pieces of white paper, literally real paper, and I just kind of sketch out it, and then I might, you know, move those pieces of paper around to create a nice flow. I like to kind of draw it by hand a little bit. Of course, we're going to see Visme and how great that is. Another way I start, if I'm doing it on, like, you know, my computer, is I might just start with the titles of each slide. Market evolution, and then move on. You know, our history, or like whatever those titles are. I'm just sort of thinking it through by doing the titles. Or I might find an older deck that I've done in the past, or a template like what we're going to see with Visme, and then just modify that to fit. So just a couple ways to get started creating this. And then once I've kind of got the story arc going in my deck, I'll add just simple images, diagrams, and a little bit of text, but you really want to keep the text to a minimum. One of the biggest problems I see with pitch decks, and I see hundreds of them every month, is they have too much text in them, way too much text. And you know, the biggest problem I see, or the biggest reason I see startups fail at fundraising, is their pitch deck is not very good. And a lot of times that's because they have too much text. So anyway, as Albert Einstein says, if you can't keep it simple and explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. So really aim for that simplicity. If you want to use Founder Suite for your raising capital, we've got a couple awesome deals. Visme Monthly, 30% off a monthly plan. Visme Annual, 40% off an annual plan. And then my last little plug, and I'll turn it over. We've got a really killer YouTube channel, just interviews with founders on how they raise money. So check that out. If you want to reach me, I'm Nathan at Founder Suite, or we're on Founder Suite on Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. So that is all I've got. Hopefully there was some nuggets in there that are useful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nathan. That was a great presentation. I know that we're getting some great feedback, so I know that you were providing some really valuable information. So appreciate that. And we'll, you know, those codes again, I think they were they Visme 30 or Visme Monthly, and go ahead and put those in the chat, Nathan, so that people
I will, sure.
Can see those and save those if they want to use those as well. All right, awesome. We'll go ahead and pass the time over to Paymon. And Paymon, like I said before, he's the CEO of Visme, and he's going to be showing you guys the pitch deck that we collaborated together with Nathan to create. And he helped us kind of build those archetypes that he went over into these slides so that you can really easily take what you've learned here from Nathan and transfer it into an actual pitch deck. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Paymon.
Thanks, Lindsay and Nathan. Fantastic job. I definitely learned a few things myself, even though I've been doing pitch decks for some time. But so great information. By the way, just real quickly about the coupon codes, Lindsay, if you don't mind, send that to me on Slack. By the end of the webinar, within about 5-10 minutes after, those codes will be activated in case they're not. So just if you're looking to get a license of Visme, just hold off about 30-40 minutes. And then you should be good afterwards to take care of these codes that also Lindsay will put on the chat. Okay.
Those are for Founder Suite. We can
Founder Suite. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to also provide. Yeah, we're going to also then do the same thing. We'll also provide the same code. So if you did want to get a Visme license, if you do not have an account, paid account, then you will be able to take advantage of that on your first purchase. So we'll go ahead and do that. That's kind of out of the blue. I'm going to drop off right there. That wasn't planned, but let's go ahead and make it a good day. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I'm not going to make this too long. I mean, at Visme, we have these Visme 101s every Thursday, and you are able to create all types of content, and we show you all around different aspects of Visme, because we really are an all-in-one design tool. And people asked that. Literally, there was a question on the question tab about what is Visme, how is it different than Canva or other tools? So I will just sprinkle a couple things, but I'm going to really focus on the pitch deck that we're talking about today. That's the purpose of it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You're going to see a little bit of a tunnel vision. I'm going to disable my own video in just a moment. All right, so we can get the maximum bandwidth going to the design. So here we go. For those of you that are new to Visme or haven't heard about it, we are an all-in-one content creation platform. And so today I'm going to focus on presentations, but when you create an account at Visme, you end up in something like this. This is the actual team account of Visme that I'm creating content. I literally started a slide, which is the one I'm going to present to you shortly. But we are like the Google Drive that has married the core functionalities of a presentation tool, data visualization, charts and graphs, and everything in between. So you can create any of these: infographics, documents, charts and graphs, printables, things for web graphics you can embed to your site, social graphics, even videos and GIFs and more. Okay, but today I'm going to focus on the presentation aspect of it. Now, before I go into the presentations, I'm going to actually go ahead. This is what you do: create a new project, presentation, and you basically end up over here. Okay. Now I'm going to step back for just a moment because I want to mention something. in Visme, you are able to set up, so let's say you're a startup or an organization, you can go to the My Brand section. It is here. You can upload your own logo so that when you present and so on, it's got your logo on it. You can then go in and tap into all the fonts that Visme gives you. There's hundreds of them. If you want to set up your own brand guidelines, you can also set up your colors. You can literally extract colors from your logo. And you see you have this. I'm going to be creating a presentation. When I do it, I'm going to be using the Visme brand color so that it follows me everywhere. And I'm not going to go into too much more details other than telling you is that we give the ability to basically set up everything all the way down to set up your branding guidelines so you can actually reuse when you add charts, tables, so that it follows through, templates and brand links, and even down to the settings for those organizations that are like, we only want to use our startup colors. We don't want to use Visme themes. We don't want to use Visme templates. You're able to completely tackle that. Well, I'm going to go do the creation process, and here's the steps I'm going to follow. I only have about 10, 12 minutes. I'm going to create a 4 or 5 slide pitch deck, and I'm going to base it on the new pitch deck specifically created for startups and organizations that want to use it to market and promote their startup or their organization. And then I'm going to come back and show you how you can actually measure the analytics, the engagement on that slide, because we have a whole data set here. And then I'm also going to show you how to download it so you can send it as an email, how to publish it online as a public or private, so that you have the capacity to use it and do what you want for the specific use cases. So here we are, focusing on just presentations today. We recently launched a 4th theme, because if you look here, we have the modern theme, simple theme, the creative, and we now have just launched recently the startup pitch deck. Okay, and the difference between these themes and our vast variety of other templates that we call them are basically, these templates are more specific use case. By the way, this is based on the Airbnb pitch deck, just to let you know. It just happens to be, we just renamed it and adjusted the numbers. So you can tap into that and do that. So we actually have a lot of the common pitch decks embedded within here. But these are limited number of slides. You see there's 5, 6, 7 slides. So you can duplicate them, adjust them as needed. But then what we have here is these giant themes, and they are made up of many slides. So the startup pitch deck is all based on Nathan's recommendation. So you're going to see that in just a moment. What you do is you just click edit, and you're able to mix and match slides and customize them. So once you do that, you end up in the editor itself. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and focus on creating a presentation. I just want to give you a very quick 2-3 minute, a 1 minute overview of where things are. Like, where am I? What is all this stuff? So right panel, just like using PowerPoint in a tool, in our case, it's in the right panel. That's where you can access slides, you can add new slides. And the left panel is where you can go in and drag and drop objects. And that's where the beauty of Visme comes in. We have so many features and pre-built blocks and assets and graphics, all the way from static to animated objects. I'm going to use a couple of those in my design. Again, maybe not recommended for this particular startup deck, but you at least have an understanding of it. But you actually could use a little bit of it in a teaser that I think would be a cool engagement. We have a giant photo library, and of course, you can access all your photos anytime at Visme. The more we use Visme, the more friendly it gets, because I can go and see, there it is. There's Nathan, right? Nathan, that's you. So there's a photo where we're creating a pitch deck, and there's assets that I can bring in. So I'm going to go ahead and add this image that was added to the canvas before, so I can reuse assets as needed. And maybe what I want to do, and by the way, I can go to my files. That's where all the files are stored. I want to go in, and we've created folders before, so my team can go in and tap into the Visme logo any time that they want. So I'm going to go ahead and add this made with Visme logo. Maybe in your case, it'll just be your logo. Okay, so I'm going to add that there, and I'll go ahead and drop it later into another slide. Again, we have a light version, dark version, and so on. Okay, so that's where that is. But again, the list goes on. Graphics, photos, data visualization. I'm going to use some charts and data widgets to visualize data. These are unique to Visme. We have a ton of charts here. This is not your average presentation tool. We go all the way with data visualization, workflows, flow charts, videos and audio. You can even embed third-party content. You can even drop your website in here. You can embed forms, videos. I'm going to do some of that. You could even, let's say you're creating a pitch deck that's going to be self-serving. So you're going to send it to a potential investor, or you are using it for other use case, for marketing purposes. You send this to a potential client. You can actually record audio, and then when they view it, literally that's you talking behind the scenes. So you could even do that as well. You could do this per slide. You could do background music and so on. Theme colors, I'm going to come back to that. So you can, in one click, change the entire color theme of your design. And of course, my files and all these apps that you can connect with your favorite apps you're using every day. So I'll come back to that a little bit too. But let's go on and start from the very beginning. And let's create a 4 or 5 slide pitch deck. So how do I do it? Add new slide. So remember, we have selected the startup pitch deck from Visme here, collaborate with Founder Suite. And in that case, we have these categories. So remember, we talked about, I need a title. Okay, what is going to be the title? Now, I already have the very first slide added in, so I have that there. But remember, we talked about introduction and archetypes. So let's say there's a problem that we're looking to solve. So you kind of mix and match what you're looking for, okay? And then you're able to, and if you want to see the larger version of it, you see, so you decide which one you want to do, and then you kind of go through and tap into that. So let me just go ahead and say, hey, I want to talk about the purpose of our company. So let's go ahead and tap this one. And then trends, so maybe there's a market size, like, hey, there's a huge market size and a potential we're doing. Maybe I want to do it as a chart instead. And then I want to talk about, maybe there is the metrics. Again, this is talking about a level of data visualization again. Go ahead and add that. And then maybe there's a business model. So let's talk about what kind of a business model, we are, and the pricing model, let's say that's that. Sales and marketing, how are you going to promote it? How are you going to promote your startup? How are you going to, get it in front of everybody else, your target audience? So that's how you can do that as well. Again, you just basically take the slides and you do that in no particular order, because I can change the order as needed. I can right click and duplicate and do all those things, move it to the beginning. If you're going to be presenting in front of an audience, which is very rare now, but again, maybe you have a dual monitor and you're going to be talking through the slide, and so you can actually add presenter notes. So that when you're presenting, you're able to tap into those. I'll show that to you in a little bit. But basically what I just did was I put a few slides here, right? And of course, I could have added a empty slide too, which I've done here. And in fact, what I did was I put a couple of text pieces here. And the reason is, you'll see that in just a moment. So first things first. Okay, this is not really my brand color, Payman. This is great, but how do I go ahead and make it so that it feels and has the look and feel of my brand? Well, let's go to the left panel. Remember, I told you that you can add your logos and so on, or you have your theme colors. Now, first of all, you can click on any object and change the color to whatever you want. Remember those Visme colors? They follow me everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, I can change the colors. But let's make it easy. I just want to go ahead and tap into this color scheme. So in one click, I just change the entire color scheme. Now, you can override this, right? So I can double click this, and you see how cool this is? This is a little widget, so I can actually control that completely. And where does this come from? Well, again, you can customize anything from the data section, data widget. So maybe I don't want to talk about like a little radial widget, and look, it changes the color I put in. But what I want to do is I want to talk about an array, a population. So let's say we're talking about the size of the market and so on. So in this case, hey, what percentage are paid users, or what percentage are males or females? So I'm going to click this and say, well, let's just, for the sake of a estimate, say, look, there's going to be 50, and then maybe there's going to be, 32 female, and then randomize the order, and I'm going to go ahead and basically just decide how many icons I want to have. And again, I can always adjust that, right? So we have all these things for visualizing data, and it's not just in other tools you have to copy paste 60 times, 50 times. But in Visme, you can completely customize that and even make it be like, different icons. Like, hey, we are in the biotech industry, and so we believe that this is going to increase the correlation between the amount of people that are using, let's say they have heart disease, so let's do that red, and maybe they're going to have, let's say, I believe that's the kidneys, not the lungs, right? Hopefully I got that right. And so I can do that and change that. So you could actually establish that metric if you want there and modify, okay? So that's kind of in terms of the customizations here. But let's go back. Maybe what I want to do is I want to have a very first slide, and I want to catch the attention of the potential investor or the audience that I'm putting it at. So I'm just going to go ahead to the title here, and I want to do something different. Okay, I just want to give you an idea of what you could do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and insert this slide. Okay, and again, the colors I can always adjust. What I want to do is go ahead and actually add a video. I want to get the attention right off the bat of the audience that I'm going after. So what I will do is I will go to the apps. I'm going to go drop a little YouTube video. I've got the URL here. By the way, check this out. This is me back in the day when we first started Visme. And in that day, it wasn't called Visme. It used to be called Presenter. And this is a video. It's many years old. That's why it's got black areas, because the dimension's off. And this was me presenting the very, very beginning, the first in Baltimore, Maryland, an incubator, and showing how Visme was going to be the replacement for Adobe Flash for those of you that were around. That's what Visme was. I don't know if you guys know that or not. It was supposed to be an animation tool. And then we pivoted into an all-in-one visual design tool, not just for presentations and animations, but everything else. So that's my first slide. I can go here. Again, you can adjust everything. Let's go to the next one, adjust as needed. And if you want to bring in some, just a little bit of attention grabbing or the point to something, what I'm going to do is, let's say I want to bring an attention to the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, again, by the way, you could be very static in your pitch decks. I just want to show you that you could bring in a little bit, just a touch of interactivity to bring an attention to something. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this hand here, and I want to bring some attention to that. But again, we have other ones, right? So I could go ahead and then use this one, or that one, and that one. But I'm just going to go ahead and change the color. I want the skin color to be tanned, and I want to be repetition there, okay? So that's the next slide, data. So I have data in Visme that you can bring in, and maybe this is not the chart type I want. We give you tons of different chart types. You see, whatever chart type you want, go ahead and use it. The other thing you can do is I want to bring in, let's say I'm talking about the data changes constantly. And so I can feed this data, other than importing it or manually entering it into the data. I could bring in to import data from Excel. It's a one-time import. We also have Google Analytics. So you can actually say, hey, look, here's the traffic that our site is getting right now. You can connect and actually bring in your Google Analytics here. Very soon, we're going to launch SurveyMonkey. For those of you that know, that's coming literally in just the next day or so. But I want to connect to live data. I want to show how data is constantly changing. I don't want to come back every single time, open the chart, because maybe I'm sending this 3 days from now, and in a month, somebody's going to see it. So I'm going to be bringing data to Google Sheets, and I just want to bring this. I want every time somebody views this presentation to check, get the latest data from Google Sheets, from a Google Sheet document. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and bring in a little code that I have stored here. And basically, this is a Google Sheet that was already published before. The instruction is very similar, and look what I'm doing. So I just connected to live data. This data is live. So if I was to open Google Sheets and make changes to this, the next time somebody sees it, they're going to see the latest data. Anyway, I'm going to just go back to a couple more things here. So again, the data, you can, of course, modify your data here. And again, according to that, you can override it. Go there, last slide. And maybe there's one more thing I want to do. I want to do one more thing. Let's go ahead and drop this slide. And I'm going to go back to the slide here. And what I want to do is I just want to put a jot form. So let's say that, hey, are you interested in becoming, let's say, an angel investor in my company? And I'm sending this pitch deck to a lot of people. So I'm going to go to apps, and I'm going to come in, and I'm going to go under marketing. And I'm going to go to, let's say, jot form. Okay, and you can do type form as well. And I'm going to go ahead and add, let's say there's a form that you've created, right? So I'm going to go ahead and insert this form inside of my Visme. Now this is a class registry. I'm just showing it as an example, but this is a fully functioning form. And so what I can do is at the very last slide, I can tell people, hey, interested? Fill out the form. I'll be in touch with you. I don't have to send them anywhere else. This could be anything. All right, so that's that. And again, we have a lot of different apps you can connect to, bring data from bring files from Google Drive, Dropbox, and the whole 9 yards. But let's jump into it for the sake of time, because there's not a lot of time left, and show you what the end result of this can look like. So let me go ahead and just hide this slide, because I don't want this to be seen. I don't want to delete it. Maybe I want to come back to it. And maybe last minute I change my mind and say, look, I don't want that theme color. I just want to be maybe this one. This will be better. Or you know what? I was happy with the default. So there's that. And then the last thing I want to do, because this is my cover slide, I'm going to go to media. I'm just going to go to videos. And maybe what I want to do is bring in something abstract. So it's not so static, the very first slide that they see. So I'm going to go ahead. I guess it's not probably the best example, but let's go ahead and put that there. Arrange, send to back. Okay. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share this presentation. All right. I'm going to actually share this with you guys. I'm going to send you a link. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click share. And again, people always ask, can you download this as well or not? Yes, you can also download it as well. Okay. And maybe I'll do the download first because the sharing is where I'm going to send you a link. Now, why would I download versus use it online? If you use it online, we're going to have the analytics, and then you can make changes anytime. If I send this pitch deck to you right now, which I will do, I'm going to say I made an error, and I'm going to correct it. By the time you go to it, it's going to have the latest information. If I download it, sorry, once I send that through, it's outdated information. So there's a disadvantage to downloading, but there's also an advantage. Maybe you just don't want any instance of it online. Again, you can make it private. There's an answer for that, but that's up to you. You can download as a PDF, multi-page PDF document. I think that Nathan mentioned about, well, sometimes you might just not want it to be interactive. You just want to send it through. We'll download as a PDF. It'll just be flat, multiple pages. Every slide becomes a page, multi-page PDF document. You could download as a video, but I don't recommend it for startup pitch decks. The videos are more for like, full-blown animated interactivity, which you can do in Visme. We're not going to talk about that today. Present offline. There's a couple of things you could do. PowerPoint, you can make it an editable PowerPoint. So you download as PowerPoint, you will not have the interactivity that you're seeking. If you need that and you want to be offline, you can download as HTML5. Don't worry about it. If you're a non-designer, non-techie, the term sounds complicated. All it is a zip file. All the files will download. You copy it to your local. You can present it offline without even being connected to Visme. All right, so that's a download way that you could do that. But what most people do is they share it as a link, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just say, hey, we got the Founder Suite collab pitch deck, okay? And sorry for the spelling. And then I wanted this to be private, though. And what are the private options? Very similar to Google Drive. I want people to only be able to view it, but I want them to be able to view and comment on it. In fact, I'm going to turn on commenting. So maybe what I can do is I want only restricted specific people. So let's say I want a Nathan, for example. I don't have his email here, but I could type it and put in Founder Suite and then send an invite, and he'll get an invite, and then he'd have to be Nathan to be able to see and view that. But what I'm going to do for the sake of today and time is I'm just going to allow anyone with the link. It's private, but only those with the link can actually view it. So I could still take this link and pass it to somebody else if I want to, and I'm going to view it and say anyone with the link can comment, okay? So here's the link I'm going to send you in just a moment. And I want to mention a couple more things. Again, we're running out of time. I'm always a little bit over. You could go ahead and embed this into your own website if you wanted to as well, or your internal system. You could go in and all the way, people ask, how are you different than the other presentation tools? If you want to, you can be very simple with your pitch deck. You don't have to touch these. They're already set up for you. Should you choose to, you can do anything. Responsive on. I don't want a control bar on because I want people to click on an object to go to another slide. I want to autoplay animation. All these settings are there should you choose to. Privacy settings, no social sharing, no commenting. Again, in this case, I turn commenting on and so on. But let's go ahead and send you the link. And while I send you the link, actually, there's one more important thing I forgot to say. Sharing, advanced settings, privacy requires registration. So this is where, here's the link. I'm going to send it to you in the chat. You see? Now I have to enter my name to be able to see that. And by the way, don't worry about the Visme logo. Remember, I uploaded that from my brand section. So it would be your logo. So I'm going to put my name, my email, and I'm going to say Visme, okay? And then submit. And now I can view it. And I'm going to do the same thing for you guys. I'm going to give you the same ability in just a moment. Let me go back to the link. Here you go. Here's the pitch deck. Okay. And then last thing I'm going to show is, hey, I'm going to go full screen. And so what my presentation looks like, by the way, I didn't do any interactivity on this other than just having a video. In Visme, every object, see there's the video, it's playing. Wow, I was a little bit younger then, scratching my head. Woo, okay. So look at that. That's our ugliest homepage, right? That's like 6 years ago. Anyway, so there, and I go to the next slide. So there it is. And again, this is no animation interactivity, but I added a little object there, and then I go in. So here's the data, right? And so there's that. There's the chart. All this is actually on rollover. I didn't add any table data, so that's that. So there's my pitch deck, right? And again, I can decide and can view all and navigate through it as needed, and so on and so on. So I hope that gives you guys some insights, but I want to also mention the following. You could invite other people to comment. So maybe I have my co-founder or somebody else or another individual, and I can say, hey, look, this is wrong. Like, hey, wrong information, change it, such and such person. I could do that. And so like, hey, go ahead and change it. I could do that. And he can go in and then adjust it, reply it, and comment. So we have full commenting ability as well if needed. I think gave commenting ability to you guys, that you'll be able to do that as well if you wanted to. And then last thing is passing it back to Lindsay. I'm going to stop sharing. I could go on, but let's take a break here and pass it back to Lindsay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paymon, for that awesome information. And thank you all for sticking with us to the very end. We really appreciate your time and your attention and your comments. So thank you all for joining today. We do have a couple of questions that we'll go through live. The first couple we're going to give over to Nathan. Someone asked if the company is pre-money and does not have a strong traction to show, what should a company show to a potential investor? Oh, I think you're muted, Nathan. I'll go ahead and let's see.
How about now?
There you go. You're good.
Good. Okay. Yeah, good question. Common question, right? No startup is born with traction. You know, it usually comes later. If you don't have traction, first of all, I would not use the traction archetype as your pitch. I might think of something where you're more selling either the team or the vision, right? So, you know, I use the example of like the dream team. That could be a good one if you have a really exciting team. That's the focus of your pitch, or the crystal ball, right? If you're doing something that's really cool and innovative, but you don't really have traction right now, it's just a development stage, you might focus on that as your pitch. Now, you still might want to have a traction slide later in the deck. If you have no traction, like you're literally just writing code in your basement, maybe you wouldn't take it out. But if you have early adopters, beta users, even if people aren't paying you yet, but you have people using it, if you have, you know, maybe you're selling to, or you will be selling to larger enterprises, and you've got RFPs from people, or even LOIs, letters of interest in what you're doing, that's traction. Traction means other people are interested in what you're doing. So whatever you can use to show that, that'd be great. You know, I guess one last form of traction could be simply the progress of the business. You could draw a timeline using Visme or whatever, showing how you've gone from, you know, kind of 0 to 50 miles an hour, and show what you've achieved so far. So that could be traction as well.
Awesome. All right. Another question that we had come in is someone asked, our pitches are in response to an RFP that asks for boatloads of information that often takes 40 slides. No option for a live pitch, just send the deck by the deadline. And they use a traction archetype. Or any suggestions for improving RFP pitch decks?
You know, that's a hard one because that's a very specific response to a request for proposal, right? So whoever you're pitching is asking for these things, you're supplying it. So that's obviously going to be very, very specific. My only suggestion would be to, even in that scenario, I think presentation and format, look and feel matters, you know, so just having a nice template you're using, making it look and feel good is going to help you. Also, I always tell every founder that I talk to, you put your deck aside for a few days, come back to it, and go in with a scalpel, cut out 25%, you know, just go be ruthless in cutting out as much as you can, because when you cut out stuff, it emphasizes what is left remaining, right? You're kind of highlighting what is remaining by cutting out stuff from your deck. So that's something I would definitely suggest doing.
Awesome. All right. One other question. What are some major questions that are often raised by investors at the end of a presentation, and any tips for handling those type of questions?
Yeah, so that is a large question in itself. We actually, if people want to email me, I think if you can send, I don't know, can we send my slide deck around and have my contact information? Can we include that in the follow-up?
Yeah, yeah, I can do that.
Perfect. So it's just simply Nathan at PowerStreet. We have a list. We did a LinkedIn post of like the 200 questions investors are going to ask you right? So there's a lot of questions investors might ask you, everything about competition, about your metrics, drilling into your metrics, understanding how you calculated metrics, drilling into your background, right? They want to know who you are, right? I mean, half the time, or even more than half the time, investors are betting on you. So you're going to get questions across the board. Now, having said all that, so I'm happy to send this list of about 200 or so questions investors are likely to ask or might ask. But the tactic I would suggest is in your first 5 to 10 pitches, bring in a co-founder to sit in with you, sit in on the Zoom, sit in on the live pitch meeting, and just have your co-founder write, or even an advisor, doesn't have to be a co-founder, write down every question that the investor asks. And after a few pitches, you'll start to kind of get the common questions out, and then go back and build those answers in an appendix slide. That's really the best way to be ready for the next pitch, is you built out, you know, a pretty good, healthy set of appendix slides to answer those questions.
Awesome. All right. We do have another question that has come in just now, and this will be for Nathan again. It says, if you have traction, but it's within a fast-growing hot market, how do you separate yourself from competition? An example of this is if a contact tracing solution for COVID, the startup has real customers of significant size, but everyone is going after this market.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, obviously, again, taking a step back, looking in the mirror, what is unique about your business, right? Hopefully there's something unique about it. Either you've got better efficacy of your tracing solution, or you've got better distribution partners. I mean, what is unique about your business? I would try and dig into that and tease that out, pull that stuff out, really emphasize that in your pitch. And then, of course, the other part of the pitch is just, this market is ginormous. You know, it's going to be huge. It's going to create multiple big winners. Here's why we're going to be one of them. You know, I would try and identify those two things.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Payman, I have a couple of questions on the Visme side as well. The first one is just a question that we get a ton, but how do you best preserve animations that you create in Visme? What's the best way to preserve those when you download or share with other people? Payman, I'm sorry, you're muted.
Are we good now?
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry. Okay, let me repeat that. So if you want to download it with all interactivity, animation, and so on included, click download, go to present offline, HTML5. You get a zip file, you copy it locally, it gives you and maintains all interactivity, whether you're connected to the internet or offline. If you want to maintain it as online, it will already be animated. So for example, this pitch deck by default, by the way, Nathan, isn't made to be animated because, again, we want it to be something. All our presentations by default have transitions. This one on purpose we didn't, so that it could be plain, and then you can add that. But for those of you that want to add interactivity to this pitch deck, it happens with all the others. You come into any slide, right-click, change transition, and then you can actually, say, hey, I want this kind of transition. It's already applied to all slides, and it's there. You can click on any object and do your own animations if you want to. We have complete animation abilities in Visme all the way. You can go as deep as you want. But to present it online, all you do is share. Whether it is public or whether it is private, it will maintain all interactivity. By the way, guys, I just added the interactivity. I sent the link earlier on into the chat, and guess what? It's a live presentation. So that if you go to it again, you're going to actually see the transition that are reflected. So if I made a mistake on my slide, I could adjust that there too. I hope that answers that.
Awesome. Another question, I obviously know the answer to this one, but someone was asking about ways to publish to social media accounts and automate posting schedules in Visme. I know that we're not currently doing that, but I've thought maybe we could talk about the Hubspot integration or any other future plans in that direction.
Absolutely. So yes, Hubspot integration is already in place. And so let's say if you are using Hubspot, you can go to download, let's say, and you can go to download here, and you see there's Hubspot. and then you can push it there, and you can then schedule as needed. Now, you can, of course, go to share, and then under the web, because again, when you publish, push the content into social media, it is a public content, right? So it's under public. And you can share it to any of your social media here. Scheduling for all the social media, that is coming. We are working on it. That is coming at some point this year. I can't tell you for internal reasons exactly when, but it is not too far away, probably sometime this summer.
All right, awesome. Let's see. I think that wraps up our major questions. We will get, I know there were some questions about those discount codes. We'll get that sorted, and we will send an email to all registrants in regards to how to make that happen. I did want to send you guys one more resource. Visby has a presentation course that you can take completely for free online. It's a series of videos and quizzes, and at the end you will become a presentation guru. So whether that's a pitch deck or whatever other presentation that you are currently working on, I think this is a valuable course. At the end of it, you'll get a certificate that you can add to your LinkedIn, to your Visme. So definitely recommend that you guys check that out as another resource if you're looking to improve your presentations. So just drop that link in the chat for you all. And we will send you guys that recorded session. I know a couple of you guys have asked that, as well as the slide deck. We'll get Nathan's slide deck out to you guys as well, and along with those discount codes. So with that, I think we're ready to wrap up, and just thank you all for staying on, and thank you, Nathan, for partnering with us on this webinar, and Paymon for that awesome presentation.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Super
Have
fun.
a great rest of your Tuesday.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.